Spirit of God, open our hearts to your word spoken to us. In hearing that word, the veil will be lifted and we will be free. Amen. Leadership. Leadership is a peculiar thing. Lots and lots of people aspire to be leaders. In our world, it's a measure of success. It's a measure of importance, albeit, in my opinion, a false one. We train for it, we go to school for it, we run for it, we apply for it. If we don't achieve it, at some point in our life, we consider ourselves a failure. Again, I think a false measure. And the thing about leaders, human leaders, is there's usually very little gray when it comes to leaders. Things are usually very black and white in our opinions when it comes to the leaders of our world. People either like their leader or they dislike them. Most people are not indifferent. In our country, the president, or locally, Governor Cuomo, Mayor de Blasio, Senator Schumer, and Gillibrand, we either really like them, we're behind them, we support them, or we can't wait for the day they leave office. And we blame many of our country's, states, and cities' problems on them. It's always been that way, it always will be. People have strong feelings and opinions about their leaders. Because leaders in this world are flawed. They make mistakes, sometimes terrible, horrible mistakes. They say things and do things that we disagree with. Think about the bosses in your life that you've had, your supervisors. You either really, really liked them, or you really, really didn't like them. The leaders become leaders in our world despite the objection of many. Leaders are elected. Leaders are voted in. They campaign and they win on platforms that the simple majority, 51%, agree on. On this day, when we celebrate Christ the King, we are reminded of what leaders are supposed to be. As Christians, we are reminded that we have a different leader, a king, in fact. Although that word king might seem foreign and antiquated to us, we have one who leads not because of what we say, not because of what we agree with, not because of what we vote on, but because of what he did. A king because he died out of love for his Father, because a message needed to be spoken, no matter what the cost. That's why we call him king. What made Christ a king was that he followed what was right, even though it really hurt to do it. He was sent to do something, to say something, to bring truth to those around him, and nothing would stop him. That was his mission. He met with resistance everywhere he went, although he was speaking a word of compassion and mercy and forgiveness. Everywhere he went, he got resistance. So to follow him, to follow this king, to be a Christian, means doing and saying things that are right and good, even and maybe especially when they are difficult, when there is risk involved. Standing up for what is right, even if there is a price tag, is what it is to be a Christian. When we see that something is wrong and choose to do nothing, we reject Christ, because we become part of that injustice and part of the responsibility for the pain that this causes to others. When something needs to be spoken, when a person needs to hear about something they are doing that is morally wrong, that is breaking a relationship, that is causing pain, faith calls us to speak it. Always to speak it as healers, never to offend or to place ourselves above them, but to speak it in love and in kindness. The fact is, we may lose that person. The fact is, that person may label us as holier than thou. Our circle of friends may decrease. But what does Jesus say to Pilate today? For this I was born, to testify to the truth. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. Doing what is right, speaking what needs to be spoken is difficult and frightening, but it's what Christ did. He had the faith that if he spoke the truth, the Father would take care of the rest. Sometimes we need to come to terms with the truth of our own life and who we are. See, folks love to live in self-illusion because sometimes that's just easier. Sometimes there is a truth that is in front of us that we just don't want to accept because there's a price tag, because things need to change in our life. Sometimes it's easier to speak the truth to another person than to come face to face with our own truth. But that's where freedom comes from. So sometimes we need to look at our own truth, our own reality, and say, this is what it is. We need to be in touch with that and move forward. Christ is king not because of the power this world granted him. He is king because he served. He gave himself for others. He saw value in people that others saw as valueless. He healed and connected people back to their world. He stopped long enough to look at people, literally to look at people on the road, to recognize them as valuable, to listen to what they had to say, and to make a difference in their life. If we follow him, if this is our king, shouldn't we try to do the same thing? Do we have those times in our day-to-day life when we're going through our schedule and getting things done and checking things off our to-do list that God will interrupt us and give us an opportunity to serve? And those moments are not as rare as we think. We think that you have to be these grand gestures that we do to people. Not always. Moments that we can serve and be for others, to connect to those around us, are not that uncommon. Most are small, every day, that take us literally a few seconds. But God gives us each and every day of our life an opportunity to be for others, to lift a person up. We are all called and created by God to be with others, to help others, and to serve, to go beyond ourselves, even when it's uncomfortable, even if it takes us out of what we are familiar with. To follow a king who is a king because he served and gave and spoke truth means that others need to be as important or more important than ourselves. When their hunger and their cold and their children, their journey, their right to live as we live is as respected as our own, then we become like Christ. Then we become more human. Some would say more divine. And to the degree that we turn from those needs and we turn from those sisters and brothers, we separate ourselves from God. So why do we call him king? Why do we call him great? Because he spoke the truth that people needed to hear. He understood, my kingdom is not of this world. Jesus understood that. He understood that he had a mission here to do. He understood that he had a message to give. And that's what he teaches us, that each and every one of you, regardless of your situation in life, regardless of what you have done in the past, regardless of what you are going through now, each and every one of you has a purpose and a mission. It is yours. From before you were born, that belongs only and exclusively to you. Whether you are 12 or 92, God has purpose for you. He has given you the gifts and the talents and the experience and the history to do what must be done. And as important as that mission is, Christ reminds us that in the end we are only passing through this life. See, Pilate couldn't understand that. For Pilate was now, it was all that was around him that was important. There was nothing beyond it. So he couldn't understand when Jesus said, my kingdom is not of this world. It made no sense to him. We are in this world, we are not of it. We are here to achieve union with God as much as we can in this life. To recognize that we are all spirit. In fact, we are one spirit, covered in this very temporary, temporal body. Our destiny lies beyond this life. But this is part of how we get there. Jesus saw that and understood that. And that's why we call him King. And we share in his kingship when we speak the truth, kindly, to bring healing. And we move out of ourselves to change the lives of others for the better, serving and not being served. And when we see that the truth is that we are not meant for this world, we are part of it, but not ultimately for it. Everyone who belongs to the truth listens to my voice. And when we listen and when we follow, we share in his kingship. We share in the divinity of Christ. And it is then, my sisters and brothers, that we become most human. Amen.